Hello, everyone. We're beginning shortly. May we encourage those sitting at the back to please fill in the seats in the front rows so that the latecomers will be sitting there. Okay? All right, so thank you very much, everyone. Hello, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Welcome to the SEARCA Drilon Hall. Also, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to those joining us via Facebook Live. So we're being streamed right now on SEARCA's Facebook page. I am Sunny from SEARCA, and I'll be your host for today's session. So welcome to another Agriculture and Development Seminar Series, or the ADSS. We just had this last Thursday. As you know, this seminar has been one of SEARCA's platforms for facilitating exchanges of practical and scientific knowledge in agriculture and rural development. And this morning, as you know, SEARCA, we had a celebration for our 58th anniversary. And just to share with you, for 21 years of that 58 years, we've been conducting this ADSS since we launched this in 2003. And this seminar in particular is primarily for our stakeholders stakeholders in the Los Baños science community. So we have, I guess, from UPLB and nearby scientific institutions in the area. But we're also being live streamed through SEARCA's Facebook page, and we have attendees coming from the different parts of the Philippines, and also those joining us remotely from abroad. And we asked, in our registration form, we asked our attendees why they are interested on the ADSS topic for today. And just to cite a few reasons, first, of course, to gain knowledge, enrich their teaching materials, probably for those who are professors or teachers, and learn about sustainable farming practices. And a lot of our attendees have shared, they have expressed their concerns about environmental impact of pesticides and the importance of finding safer alternatives. And we also have attendees citing the potential benefits of pesticide-free farming for crop protection, human health, and overall agricultural sustainability. So I've seen the presentation, and I believe that much of this will be covered by our special guest from Germany. So to formally welcome us all this afternoon and to briefly introduce our resource speaker, may I call on SEARCA Center Director, Dr. Glenn B. Gregorio.
Thank you very much, Sunny, and it's not a sunny day today. It's a rainy day, so thank you for that. And now I have my notes, because as I told you, I'm not a politician, so I have to read my notes here. So it is my pleasure to introduce our distinguished speaker for today's SEARCA's Agriculture and Development Seminar Series. So we call it ADSS. Professor Dr. Enno Bahrs, who will present on the compelling topic about pesticide-free cropping system, my dream. That's my dream. Game changer, or the slow seller. So it's very controversial topic. So Dr. Bahrs is a renowned figure in the agricultural economics and farm management. He currently serves as the head of the Department of Agricultural Business Management at the prestigious University of Hohenheim in Germany. He brings with him a wealth of experience from his diverse academic journey. Before taking his current role, he served as the Professor for Sustainable Economic Development in Agriculture at the University of Natural Resources and Life Sciences in Vienna, Austria. And as an assistant professor of farm management at George August University, Göttingen in Germany, his international academic contribution has underscored his dedication to advancing sustainable farming practices globally. So beyond academia, Professor Bahrs actively shaped agricultural policies and research. He is a key member of several influential scientific boards, including Scientific Advisory Board on Biodiversity and Genetic Resources and Scientific Advisory Board on Plant Protection under the German Federal Ministry of Food and Agriculture. So he's very influential. So if you need something from Europe, go to him. So he is, furthermore, his role on the editorial board of the German Journal for Agricultural Economics highlights his influence in advancing agricultural research and innovation. Today, he will share his experience on a timely and thought-provoking topic, pesticide-free cropping system, game changer, or slow sellers. With his extensive background in farm management and sustainable agricultural system, we are certain his insight will inspire lively discussion and deeper understanding of the complexities surrounding this critical issue. Please join me in warmly welcome Professor Dr. Enno Bahrs.
Yeah, dear Glenn, dear Sunny, thank you very much for the warm welcome. And thank you very much having the possibility, the opportunity to join your celebration this morning. It was really a great party and yeah, I liked it very much. So applause from me to you. Thank you. So I would like to talk about pesticide-free cropping systems, if there are a game changer or slow sellers, and it's a special project funded by the Federal Ministry of Education and Research in Germany with the development and holistic analysis of a cropping system without chemical synthetic plant protection products, but with optimized use of mineral fertilizer. So it's not really organic and it's not really conventional, it's just in between. And let's talk about it with the background of the European Green Deal. And with the European Green Deal, the European Union wants to transform the EU's economy for a sustainable future. And therefore, there's also a strategy for agriculture with a zero pollution ambition for a toxic-free environment, with preserving and restoring ecosystems and biodiversity, and with the farm-to-fork strategy with healthy and environmentally friendly food systems. So therefore, such an agricultural system could be a kind of game changer, and let's see how it works. So usually we have worldwide, especially two systems. One is a conventional system with perspective from the marketing. Either you can market it conventional or you market it organic. And conventional means you have especially industrialized processes with monotone crop rotations, low degree of heterogeneity in agricultural landscapes, high yield varieties, high external inputs, etc., etc. Natural processes mean you never will have an agricultural system without any plant protection. You still need plant protection, but in another way, with diverse crop rotations, high degrees of heterogeneity in agricultural landscapes, site-adapted resistant varieties, low external inputs, and towards closed cycles. So what would it mean to have an agricultural system without any pesticides? It will be just in between organic and conventional, with no use of chemical synthetic pesticides, with moderate use of mineral fertilizer, and that's really important, with use of new technologies and agroecological measures. So why do we need pesticide-free farming concepts and cropping systems? So we could say we don't use it. But especially in Europe, and that's not the very case here in Southeast Asia, but maybe it will become in future, I really don't know. But that's the case in Europe. We have more and more registration restrictions for future and fewer active ingredients for chemical synthetic pesticides. We have also to secure the quantitative supply of food, not only in Europe, but also for the whole world. Because we export a lot of foodstuff in other parts of the world. And that's more and more important for Europe. Residues of chemical synthetic pesticides viewed more and more critically by the society. So let's talk about the other side. If you don't use any chemical synthetic pesticides, you will have for sure yield depressions or yield losses because of diseases, because of pest infestations, and because of weeds. We all know that very well. And you will have also economic risks and marketing with regard to quantity, but also with regard to quality. Chemical synthetic pesticides saves quality. Let's talk about, for example, fungi. You will have a lot here in Southeast Asia with your weather conditions. And it's not the very same in the middle of Europe. So in the middle of Europe, you can leave chemical pesticides more easy than here in Southeast Asia. So it's a different story, and you have to keep this in mind. To address all the sustainable development goals of the United Nations, which means to have a high supply performance and to promote biodiversity and increase sustainability with a contribution to climate protection, and also to have a sufficient consumer acceptance, what characteristic must a pesticide-free cropping system have in order to achieve the status, objective, and goals of the United Nations? Big question mark. So that's our try. What are the main characteristics of our so-called NOPS cropping system without chemical synthetic pesticides, but with mineral fertilizer? It addresses agroecological measures like diverse crop rotations, disease-resistant varieties, optimized sowing patterns, and also with regard to landscape elements to promote resilience, yield stability, and resource protections. And also promote plant growth and plant health with bioeffectors and beneficial organisms. And that's why such a system is not old wine in new bottles. Think about 100 years ago. We had already agricultural systems without chemical synthetic pesticides, but with mineral fertilizers. It was the time 100 years ago. But nowadays, we have much more new techniques, especially with regard to smart farming technologies, which makes it much more easier to have an agricultural system without any chemical synthetic pesticides. With the monitoring of plant growth and plant health, with application of seeds, nutrients, beneficial organisms, and bio-based pesticides, and also with regard to weed control with camera-controlled automatic weed hoes and harrows. So Here we have an increasing resource efficiency. To deal with such a agricultural system, you need really a lot of expertise. And that's why we have a huge networks of researchers inside our project. And that means we have different work packages with NOPS cropping system development. That means crop production, smart farming techniques, plant nutrition, soil ecology, and also, that's more important for land, breeding and plant protection. We have a second work package with ecological and qualitative evaluation with regard to crop quality, environmental impacts, but also with regard to soil-plant pathogen interactions. And at the end, we have a third package, which means we have economic and social evaluation. So we have research at all scales, beginning with the plant itself, with lab analysis and greenhouse experiments, with system and exact trials, and I will show you the results of it later. And we have also farm analysis surveys, and at the end, the analysis of the whole region with the conversion of a cultivation system. So that are the main points of our research network. And we run different system trials, and we have two locations for us for the system trials. One is in the southwest of Germany at the University of Hohenheim, and one is in the northwest of Germany with our partner from the Julius Kühn Institute. And here you can see our main crop rotation, and it's really different to those crop rotations you have here usually. So you have to have a kind of abstract recognition to it. So just try to be in Germany to understand our system trials. So I will show you the results of this system trial, especially on the location, at the location of the University of Hohenheim. So these are our results from a couple of years. And as you can see, if we take, we had the story yesterday, if we call it maize or corn, so maize means corn, but this is especially silage maize, because that's most popular in Germany. We have 2 million hectares of silage maize, especially for fodder and to get energy from it. And we have only 0.5 million hectares of really corn. So just to give you an imagination what's really important for us in Germany. So these are the results from silage maize and also from soybeans, winter wheat, and triticale and spring barley, so typical cereals in Germany. We have many more cultivated plants like sugar beet, like let's say potatoes, etc., or rapeseed. But this is also very typical for Germany. But how to make it let's say, more comparable with regard to their sustainability impact. Therefore, we use an indicator which we call a grain unit. So with a grain unit, you can make the whole crop rotation comparable with each other. So the organic one, the conventional one, with the one of without any chemical pesticides. And this grain unit is an indicator that reflects the energy supply capacity of a product in relation to the calculated energy supply capacity of barley. So that makes the reference. And therefore, you can compare the whole crop rotation with each other, with the result that you have, with the reference of the conventional crop rotation, it's 100%. Our system trial shows with 0% of chemical synthetic pesticides that we have an average about 85% yield in the average in comparison to the conventional yields. So that gives you a glimpse of it, what could be possible. At the end, we have less, but it's not that less than we have expected. So the organic results are nearly 50% of the conventional one. So if we take a look at the other location in northeast Germany, it's different. So this is less, it's something like a little bit more than 70%. And the organic one is nearly as good as the one without any chemical synthetic pesticides. So the success of such a crop rotation and such an agricultural system depends maybe especially on the location. And we have to analyze what are the reasons for it. So the interim conclusion, and also a kind of hypothesis, is in NOP's cropping system, reduced yields compared to conventional system depend on the location and the position of the crop in the rotation. And yield losses in NOP's cropping systems were so far lower than expected, especially in the Southwest with its special conditions. And the special conditions in the Southwest are very fertile soils and enough water during the vegetation period. So what about the sustainability effects? Those ones are quite important. And we analyzed until now the terrestrial ecotoxicity, the freshwater ecotoxicity, and the global warming effect. And as you can see, the NOPS cropping system is better than the conventional system, but not that good in comparison to the organic system. And it's nearly the same with freshwater ecotoxicity. And with regard to the global warming effect, the NOPS system is nearly the same than the conventional system, but worse in comparison to the organic system. But to analyze all the ecological attributes, you have to analyze much more attributes than those three ones. So we are still working on it, but it's quite a lot of work. But if you analyze all these environmental impacts, we will have the really true results. Maybe in 1 or 2 years, I can talk more about it. So with regard to the preliminary life cycle assessment results, what is the advantage of pesticide-free? So first of all, lower toxicity categories than conventional farming, and it requires less land per unit of product than organic farming. That's also a powerful attribute. So it's also a proxy indicator for biodiversity loss. If you use 0% of chemical synthetic pesticide, your biodiversity indicator will be better than the conventional one. So the second point is, and that's a really tricky point, pesticide-free is a very convincing story because this system is much easier to explain then less pesticide. If you tell a consumer a story about we use 50% less pesticide, they would say, okay, but it doesn't really convince me. But if you tell the story of 0 pesticides, that's a convincing story, especially for those consumers who prefer and appreciate food with 0% pesticides. And therefore, we have to analyze the market effects of such products. So, what are the marketing options for pesticide-free cultivation systems in the food chain in Europe? And that's really important. It could be very different to the consumers in Southeast Asia. So, are there any opportunities for pesticide-free products on the markets? And will those consumers, those food users, pay more money for it? Because that's important. If you have 85% of the yields, the products will be more expensive. That's for sure. And you need those people paying more for such a food. But it will be less than for organic food. It's just in between. So the key question is, how can a pesticide-free form of agriculture be established on the market if you know that this one is established and this one is established, but this one not? So we make some analysis with German consumers, and we ask them, what is your anchor price for conventional products and for organic products? And what is your hypothetical willingness to pay if you could buy food produced without any chemical synthetic pesticides? And as you can see, the willingness to pay is often as high than those one for organic products, especially when you give them the information how this food is produced. Then the hypothetical willingness to pay is every time higher than without any information. So that's a quite good basis. We do that with soy drinks, with tofu, with wheat roll, with wheat flour, with lettuce, and even with beer. You know, beer is very important in Germany, but maybe also on the Philippines, I don't know. So what are the results of the food chain analysis? It's not all about hypothetical willingness to pay, it's much more. So what are the advantages of such food system? You have marketing related advantages. You have a development of an innovative product group. You have positive effects on corporate image and reputation, especially for the retailers. You have internal company benefits. You have fulfillment of consumer demand for more natural foods in Germany or Europe. You have contribution to environmental protection and nature conservation, but you also have many, many disadvantages. Higher prices compared to conventional raw materials. The availability may be problematic, risk to security of supply. The consumer communication is challenging. Even 0% pesticide is a convincing story. You have no established labels available. The consumer acceptance of higher prices are really questionable. The consumer product differentiation is questionable. You have disadvantages due to use of mineral fertilizers, so that's why it's not really organic. The risk of quality defects due to lack of pesticides. Think about how they look like, how do the apples and pears and all the fruits and vegetables look like without any pesticides. So that's quite a handicap. And you have risk of increased contamination of raw materials. Think about mycotoxins, etc. So the classification of pesticide-free from the perspective of food manufacturers and retailers currently is still unclear. So the relevance of the pesticide issue is recognized, but no clear idea of how such a segment could be established. We have an ultimately expression of a lack of marketing strategy idea for the future of a recognizable segment, and this segment would currently be more important than ever in view of the price inflation crisis on food market. So another point is how to name it. What should be the name of such food products? That's really very tricky, and we think about it for years, but we still didn't find a solution. So a designation with a reference to the waiver of chemical synthetic pesticide. So when we asked for it, 12.7% said, yeah, it could be quite nice, good idea. So to designate it as a hybrid cultivation system or as an alternative form of agriculture, or with a reference to mineral fertilizer, or related to the future innovation, or related to sustainability. So what is your idea how to name such a system? Just pesticide-free? We think it won't work in Germany because it's an Anglicism, and it's not really German. And you have the word pesticide in it. And consumers who like to have food without any chemical synthetic pesticides, they even don't like the word pesticide. So that's maybe not a quite good idea. So the reference to nature or naturalness would be appropriate from a marketing perspective, but legally problematic. You can't use the word organic. So we try to figure out to work with different kinds of organic, but legally we are not allowed to do it because it's all reserved for organic farming. So you can't use organic for such a cropping system. So the reference to the renunciation of chemical synthetic pesticides such as pesticide-free, you have a negative connotation of the term pesticide and a lack of positive associations. That makes it really, really difficult. So what is the conclusion and outlook? In NOP's cropping system, reduced yields compared to conventional systems depend on the location and the position of the crop in the crop rotation. Yield losses in NOP's cropping system were so far lower than expected. That's a good point. Pesticide-free should have a positive effect on environmental protection, that's for sure. And a prerequisite for successful and sustainable application of NOP's cultivation system are effective non-chemical plant protection and fertilizer measures using modern technologies and suitable site-adapted crop and crop rotations. And the project has to be continued to ensure long-term effects on ecosystem services, economic aspects, and a reliable assessment of sustainability. So therefore, we will start a second phase, which starts in 2025. So we could convince our ministries to fund these projects longer than firstly planned. So what are the exemplary follow-up hypotheses and requirements? Are NOPS cultivation systems more suitable for better sites with good water supply and nitrogen replenishment, let's say, for example, in Stuttgart-Hohenheim, than for sites with poorer site conditions, let's say for the site in the northeast of Germany? And pesticide-free cultivation systems have effects on self-sufficiency of arable crops. So we won't have the same self-sufficiency of arable crops in comparison to conventional systems. So nowadays, we export grain to other parts of the world. If we do such a system totally in Germany, we won't be longer an exporter of cereals to the rest of the world. That's for sure. So we need valid results, and a market launch require with long funding periods and few years of experience can only illustrate trends. So this is only a trend. I illustrate you only the results for 4 years, and it was not the whole crop rotation. So we need more time to analyze it. And pesticide-free cultivation systems have opportunities on the market. Perceived risks on the part of agriculture, trade, and politics could be overcome through a system approach. So that's what we want to analyze, to have a whole farm approach. So the whole farm makes its system without any pesticides, or should we make it parcel specific? So parts of the parcels of the farm are run with a pesticide-free system, and parts of the parcel are run with an organic or conventional system. That's another try. You can also have a third one. Let's say just only produce the winter wheat pesticide-free, but every year you change the parcel. So that's not really strong enough with our point of view. So we prefer this one, just to change the whole farm in pesticide-free. But that's most challenging. But that's the most convincing story. It's the same story than organic. You have to change the whole farm on organic. Otherwise, it's not really convincing for the consumers. So our try makes politics very curious. So we invited and had guests of many of our ministers in Germany. Our current federal minister of agriculture visited us. Even our chancellor, Olaf Scholz, viewed our trials and take a look on our techniques we use. And yes, we also try to make it in social media. If you are interested in, you can take a look on it. Feel free to do that. And yes, are pesticide-free systems useful for the Philippines? You know that better than me. You're experts in the agriculture of the Philippines. So I have many doubts that you could apply this during the next 1 or 2 decades, because your conditions are really different to our ones. But you know, just think about it, just try it in small scales. Maybe in 3 or 4 decades you will be successful. I don't know. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Bahrs, for that very interesting and insightful presentation. So I think some of you have some lingering questions about the presentation or some reflections about what he presented. So there are two ways on how you can ask a question. First, you can scan the QR code and type your question, or you can also use the microphone and ask directly a question to Professor Bahrs. Anyone? Any reflections? He presented some really promising results of the NOPS. Did I say it correctly? NOPS,
Yes, pretty good,
NOPS.
yeah.
Okay, the NOPS project. Yes, sir. Please use the microphone.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm M from IPB. My question is, how big should your area be to apply this type of system? And can this be applied? Do you think that this can be applied for perennial plants without cropping, without a cropping system?
Sorry, I didn't pick it up. With which plants? With?
Perennial plants.
Perennial plants,
like
yeah.
trees.
Yeah, right. Thank you very much for those very important questions. So in best case, we should have trials to regard a whole region without using any chemical synthetic pesticides, just to analyze also the biodiversity effects. So if you have a small system trial for, let's say, 1 hectare, you can't really analyze the biodiversity effects. So that's our try during the second phase. We want to make farmers curious for our crop rotations without any chemical synthetic pesticides, so that we could have at least an area of, let's say, 100 hectares. So that would be pretty good, but it's quite challenging. And using it for perennial plants, it depends. I wouldn't have the courage to use it, let's say, for bananas, pineapples, or mangoes. That's really, really very challenging. Then you can make it either organic, because then you have an established market for it, hopefully with higher prices. So nowadays we won't try it with perennial plants, maybe in future.
Okay, thank you, Professor Bahrs. Any further questions from the audience? 100 hectares. So quite challenging, especially for the Philippines. Our average land holding is around 1.5 hectares,
yes,
around that. So
maybe while waiting for the rest, my question is, you have not shown any data, or do you have any data showing that organically grown crop or vegetable has better nutrition than conventionally grown?
No, we can't detect that. And if you analyze the whole global literature, I guess you find the results, the average, that organic will it make better. I doubt this.
Yeah, because that's usually the claim, including the shelf life of the crop, the shelf life of the harvest. That's the post-harvest. They say if you're organically grown, it could stay for more than a week compared to an conventionally grown. So we have no data on that one.
Yeah.
My next question is, I like that study. I hope we could do that also in a Southeast Asian tropical condition. So we could do it side by side, having that in a different location. That's temperate Germany, but we have a different situation while you do it in the Philippines or Southeast Asia. I think that's a nice study, but I know it's also a long-term study. But in my farm, I'm trying to make it more. I'm not fully organic guy. It's not my religion and organic, but I call it natural. I think it's more. They call it, is that organically grown? No, it's natural. So what's natural? It depends upon your definition. So I have more flexibility. So they like natural because the price is the same. I could not command it higher, but naturally farmed.
It sounds pretty good. And you know, if you want a definition of natural farming, it depends on the location and it depends on the farmer. So both should fit with each other. And then you can have the most sustainable way to produce food. And even with plant protection products, and even if they are chemical, synthetical. So we should have in future a label which shows what is the sustainable level of the food. If you have an A, it's most sustainable. And if you have, let's say, an E, it's less sustainable. And my hypothesis is you can have an A even if you use chemical, synthetic plant protection products.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the audience who would like to throw a question? Yes, sir.
I'm John Julius Manuben from National Crop Protection Center. So, your talk is about pesticide-free cropping system. Have you looked on the difference on market preferences of between the four cropping systems, such as conventional, the organic, the pesticide-free, and the GAP systems?
Not really, but we will do that in future. So what we can say, or what we know, is working only with hypothetical willingness to pay. It's not really the right way. It's just an indicator. But in the next phase, in the next years, we will work with real willingness to pay. So we will make shop analysis, and people have the opportunity to buy conventional, to buy organic, or to buy pesticide-free. And that's the real result. So I will hopefully have in, let's say, 2 years, the real results, what is going on.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for your question. Anyone else from the group? Yes, Ms. Lani.
I know that you have a study on willingness to pay, and I wonder if the willingness to pay, I think it's related to consumer acceptance. And pesticide-free and organic farming has a niche, a market, and whether or not, of course, there are consumers who are chemophobia or those who are health conscious. Do you think that a farmer who would go to pesticide-free farming would still profit with the target consumers who are chemophobic or health conscious? So would it still be in Germany? Would it still be profitable to the farmer in a sense that the input would be lesser because the use of pesticide is out of the expense of the farmers?
Yeah, thank you very much. A very interesting question. You know, when organic farming started in Europe decades ago, it was really a very, 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 very small niche. And it develops over the time. And now 10% of the agricultural area in Germany is organic. So it's now more than a niche. But we can see that nowadays there's a kind of barrier to gain more market shares. It's really challenging for the organic food market. But if we are able to develop a market with food products which are not that expensive than organic, we are sure that there is an additional part of the market we could address. So this is a profile with healthiness, with regard to protection of the nature, with addressing biodiversity gains, etc. So if we make it cheaper than organic, there is maybe another niche of 5 to 10% we could address with those products. But I guess we need many, many years for it. The organic products needed decades, and maybe it will be the same with those kinds of products. And to say it again, it's especially a system with some regions of Europe. And it will be really, really very difficult to establish it in Southeast Asia. I'm pretty sure for that.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Lani and Professor Bahrs. So I think that merits another studies,
Yeah.
consumer acceptance and behavior. Anyone else from the group would like to share any reflections? He did ask some questions about the Philippine context on applicability. So do you have any reflections on that?
Yeah, Sunny, yeah, usually
sir.
in the Philippines, I talked to Enno about this one. In the Philippines, usually if you go to the market, you want people or Filipinos wants to have, especially the middle class, they want organic, but low price, but they want organic, but very clean, very big and very clean, shiny. So it's sometimes the mindset of people. But I saw an organization, actually we go to that area where they call it ugly fruits. Ugly? Yeah.
Yeah.
Ugly fruits. So it becomes popular.
Yeah.
So ugly becomes ugly is beautiful. So once you have ugly fruits, it means organically grown. So they stock, that store becomes ugly fruits or ugly vegetables, so they stock it there. Then I think the mindset of the people, if it's a little bit ugly, it's like a human, or if a friend that you're very shiny or very not so just tan and nice, and those are the nice people or nice vegetable. So it becomes popular with the fruits with some speckled a little bit there, not the one with worm inside, but ugly fruits, then eggplant that is not a little bit crooked, and a pumpkin that is a warty pumpkin, and those are so it's a mindset also, because if you want to have organically grown vegetables or fruits, you are ready to eat something not so shiny. And just a thought.
Yeah.
All right, so thank you very much, sir. Final call. Any further questions? He's only here for this week, so he's flying back to Germany next week. So if you have time, if you want to work with Professor Bahrs on some research questions that he hypothesized earlier, so please feel free to connect with him. Yes?
Just a curious question. You cited possible decrease in yields in the production for less pesticide-free farming system, but is the cost savings possibly from the non-use of pesticides and the environmental benefit of doing it outweighs the economical loss of compared to conventional farming?
Yeah, yeah, very good question. If you value the negative externalities of many conventional systems, and if you conduct a pesticide-free system, maybe it overcompares it. So then you can have at the end a higher value of pesticide-free cropping systems, but you have to able to value it, and that's quite challenging. So how to value ecotoxicity or how to value human toxicity, that's quite challenging. If you have less inside pesticide-free cropping systems with regard to or in comparison to conventional systems, how to value it. It's difficult. But That's why we try to make all these life cycle assessments to have at the end at least a qualitative perspective on all those externalities. And it will be a challenge for all economists in future to value such attributes.
Okay, so thank you very much, everyone. So that wraps up our open forum. A big hand for our resource person, Professor Enno Bahrs. For those of you who haven't asked any questions, who'd like to request for your reflections or feedback from the presentation, so kindly use this QR code to share with us your insights from the seminar and also some further questions or feedback for the ADSS. Okay, now I invite Dr. Glenn Gregorio and of course our guest speaker, Professor Bahrs, for the awarding of the certificate to our guest speaker. Okay, so this certificate of appreciation is awarded to Professor Enno Bahrs for sharing his expertise as a speaker during the Agriculture and Development Seminar Series with the topic Pesticide-Free Cropping Systems, Game Changer or Slow Sellers, held on 10th of December at SEARCA Drilon Hall, Los Baños, Laguna, Philippines, signed by our Center Director, Glenn B. Gregorio. We would also like to request our audience for a group photo. So please stand and gather in the middle of the hall for a group photo. Kindly compress in the middle, please. Great. Para close. Okay, so thank you very much, everyone. That concludes our ADSS this afternoon. We have some light refreshments outside, so please feel free to drop by the lobby and get some snacks. Again, thank you very much to our guest speaker. For our attendees, if you have time, you can also visit our Sky Garden. It's also open, so our ushers are outside to guide you through the top floor of SEARCA.